Good day, everyone. It's Sir John here, and welcome back to another discussion in science, technology, and society. First and foremost, I would like to check if you are okay in your respective places right now. I do hope that you are okay right now. Please comment down in the comment section. How are you? I hope that you're doing well there. So just stay safe there. Okay, get your paper, your notebook, your ball pen, and your pencil so that you can take down notes while we are having our conversation, our discussion for this day. Okay, today we are going to talk about intellectual revolutions, and our goal for today's discussion is to explain how the paradigm shift throughout the history. The intellectual revolution refers to a period in history when traditional ways of thinking were challenged by groundbreaking discoveries in science, philosophy, and psychology. This period marked a shift from superstition and religious dogma to rationalism, empirical evidence, and scientific inquiry. Thinkers and scientists began questioning long-held beliefs about the universe, life, and the human mind, leading to profound changes in various fields of knowledge. Because commonly in the past time, we just believe in principles based on what we observe, what we perceive around us, and we just believe what the society is commonly following. Okay, that's the scenario in the past times. Among the most influential figures of this revolution were Nicholas Copernicus, Charles Darwin, and Simon Freud. Copernicus revolutionized astronomy with his heliocentric model, which displays the Earth from the center of the universe. Darwin transformed biology with his theory of evolution, provide, proving that species evolve through natural selection. And Freud, on the other hand, reshaped psychology with his concept of the unconscious mind, explaining human behavior through deep-seated desires and past experiences. These intellectual breakthroughs not only challenged traditional beliefs, but also laid the foundation of modern science, psychology, and philosophy. Their impact continues to shape the way we understand the world and ourselves, even right now. Okay, thanks to their principles that we were able to understand um, human behavior, how the universe works right now. Okay, that's all because of the foundation of our knowledge right now. And that's what we are going to talk for today. So let's talk first about Copernican revolution. Okay, Nicholas Copernicus. All right. Nicholas Copernicus was born on February 19, 1473 in Toron, Poland. He was raised in a well-known family, well-off family. Okay, he was a son of a merchant family, and after his father's death, his uncle took charge of his education. Okay, the name of his uncle is Lucas. Okay, in his early years, Copernicus matriculated at the University of Krakow, along with his brother Andrew. His studies there introduced him to mathematical concepts and astronomy, laying the foundation for his later discoveries. He then pursued further education at the University of Bologna, where he studied law and classical studies. Copernicus later obtained his doctorate in canon law. Okay, he got his doctorate in canon law at the same university, in the University of Bologna, okay, showcasing his scholarly ability beyond astronomy. He was then sent to the University of Padua to study medicine, further broadening his intellectual pursuits. However, his most groundbreaking work came in the field of astronomy. He wrote the book De Revolutionibus, this one, okay, De Revolutionibus Orbium coelestium, or in English, that is on the revolutions of the celestial, on the revolution of the celestial spheres, in which he proposed the heliocentric model of the universe. This theory challenged the long-standing geocentric model, which placed the Earth at the center of the universe. And instead of suggesting that the Sun was the center, with planets including the Earth revolving around it. Okay, because before Copernicus, okay, most of the people before believed that the Sun is, I mean, the Earth is the center of the universe, which was what the Ptolemaic model, okay, is teaching the society. Okay, so this time let's have a thorough, okay, I think this is not a thorough, but a comprehensive comparison between the geocentrism and heliocentrism. Throughout history, humanity has sought to understand its place in the cosmos. Two primary models have shaped our understanding in the universe, and that is the geocentrism and heliocentrism. Geocentrism, which posits that the Earth is at the center of the universe, and heliocentrism suggests that the Sun occupies this central position. These two competing theories played a fundamental role in shaping astronomy, philosophy, and science. Now let's have more conversation about the geocentrism, okay, or the Earth-centered model. Geocentrism, also known as Ptolemaic model, was the dominant view of the cosmos from ancient times until the Renaissance period. This model was heavily influenced by the philosophies of Aristotle and later refined by Claudius Ptolemy in the 2nd century CE. The idea that the Earth was the center of the universe was widely accepted because the apparent motion of celestial objects, okay, the sun, the moon, planets, and stars, okay, and it suggested that they revolve around the Earth. Okay, that is perhaps mainly because of their observation that when we look at the sky based on our perspective, that they are in the ground of Earth. Okay, of course, we can see that in the heavenly bodies, the sun, moon, and other stars are moving, okay, with respect to our position. Without knowing, of course, during the time that the Earth is rotating in its own axis and revolving around the sun. The lack of perceived motion of the Earth reinforced the belief that it was stationary. Religious and philosophical traditions, particularly within Christian, Islamic, and Aristotelian thought, aligned with the idea that humanity occupied a privileged position in the cosmos. So, structure, when we are going to talk about the structure of the geocentric model, okay, the Earth is at the center of the universe. So, when this is the entire universe, the Earth is at the center. The sun, moon, planets, and stars revolves around the Earth in perfect circles. To explain planetary movements, particularly a retrograde motion where planets appear to move backwards in the sky, Ptolemy introduced the concept of epicycles, okay, the small circular orbits within larger orbits. Okay, geocentrism aligned with everyday human experience. The Earth appears stationary while celestial objects move across the sky. The model was highly refined and complex, with detailed predictions of planetary positions. Religious institutions endorsed geocentrism as it has placed humans at the center of the creation, and that's why it was very hard for some critics of geocentrism, and that includes Copernicus, okay, which was not totally in favor of the geocentrism. It's very hard for them because the church is supporting or endorsing the geocentrism, and church back then is very strong. Okay, over time, the astronomers observed discrepancies in planetary motion that the model struggled to explain, requiring increasingly complex adjustments, more epicycles. The inventions of telescope in the 17th century allowed for observations that contradicted the geocentric model, such as moons orbiting Jupiter, which was discovered by Galileo Galilei. Okay, and that is basically the concept of the geocentrism, which was um, molded, okay, and created by Claudius Ptolemy. Now let's talk about the heliocentrism, okay, the sun-centered model. Heliocentrism, or the Copernican model, proposed that the sun, not the earth, was the center of the universe. This idea first emerged in ancient Greece with thinkers like Aristarchus of Samos, but was largely ignored back then because, as what we mentioned earlier, okay, um, the most people in the society, and that includes the church, supports the geocentrism. It was not until the 16th century when, okay, Nicholas Copernicus revived and mathematically refined the model. The sun, according to Copernicus, is at the center of the universe, and the Earth, along with other planets, orbits around it in a circular path. The Earth's motion accounts for retrograde planetary motion naturally, eliminating the need for complex epicycles. And the Earth rotates on its axis, explaining the apparent daily motion of the Sun and stars, okay, which explains as well why we perceive the Sun and the stars as moving objects when we look at them in the sky. Since there are strength and scientific evidence that supports the Copernican model or the heliocentric model, it simplifies the planetary motion. The heliocentric model elegantly explained retrograde motion without needing epicycles, without the need to explain that there are small cycles that's happening while there is a revolution of heavenly bodies. Another thing is it's supported by astronomical observations. Galileo's discoveries such as the moons of the Jupiter, and the phases of Venus, provided direct evidence against geocentrism, laid the foundation for Kepler's laws of planetary motion, which later showed that planets move in elliptical rather than a circular orbits, eventually confirmed by Newton's law of universal gravitation, which explains planetary motion as governed by gravity. Okay. However, there are still challenges and resistance in Copernican uh, theory or the heliocentric model. The idea contradicted the religious teachings at that time. The Catholic Church deemed heliocentrism heretical, leading to the trial of Galileo, and the lack of immediate, tangible proof made heliocentrism difficult to accept until more precise astronomical measurements were made. Okay, so we can see, no, that there are really a lot of challenges that both of the idea, okay, have faced. That covers the geocentrism and heliocentrism. And that's why whatever we believe right now, we cannot guarantee that that would be the same principle that the future generations will believe because of the continuous venture of the new discoveries right now. Alright, so what is the impact of Copernican revolution? The Copernican revolution marked a turning point in human understanding of the universe and had profound effects on multiple disciplines. Copernicus' heliocentric model, developed through meticulous observations and calculations, laid the foundation for modern astronomy. By placing the sun at the center of the universe instead of the earth, his theory challenged long-standing beliefs based on Ptolemaic Aristotelian cosmology. This shift instigated the start of modern astronomy and modern science, influencing later scientists like Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, and Isaac Newton. The Copernican model triggered the scientific revolution, a period marked by a new approach for inquiry, experimentation, and reliance on empirical evidence. This revolution challenged religious and traditional views of the universe, leading to advancement in physics, mathematics, and observation astronomy. The Copernican revolution forced the philosophers, the scientists, and even the theologians to reconsider humanity's place in the cosmos. The shift from the geocentric to heliocentric model challenged religious interpretations and philosophical beliefs that positioned humans as central to creation. And over time, this contributed to the separation of science from religious doctrine and the rise of scientific rationalism. Okay, so that's basically one of the reason why the church and this at the state is separated right now. Okay, so Montesiano, so his model, the model of Copernicus embodies by his ideas of observation and thorough studies is extremely scientific. Instigates the start of modern astronomy and modern science, started the scientific revolution in fields. It also affects the field of philosophy, science, and theology. That's what we've mentioned earlier. Okay, this time let's talk about the Darwinian revolution. Are you familiar with Charles Darwin? Okay, Charles Darwin. So the Darwinian revolution refers to the profound shift in scientific thought brought about by Charles Darwin theory of evolution by natural selection. This revolution fundamentally transformed our understanding of life, biology, and humanity's place in nature. Darwin's idea, published in his 1859 work on the origins of the species, challenged long-held beliefs about the immutability of species, divine creation, and nature of human existence. His theory provided a naturalistic explanation for diversity of life, emphasizing gradual change over time through inherited variations and differential survival. However, not everyone right now believes the theory of Charles Darwin, especially Christians. However, we'll try to dig deeper about his principles. Okay, so Charles Darwin was born on February 12, 1809, and died on April 19, 1882. Okay, he published his book on the origin of species, wherein there he explained the principles, okay, how did the human evolve, okay, and he believed that we come from um, monkey, okay, a family of a monkey. So on the origin of species or the natural selection tells us a lot of principles or explanations how our nature as a human evolved. Okay, and one of that is the variation. Okay, which is explained, okay, in the concept of natural selection. When we say natural selection, it takes place in four different ways, and variation is one of that, as what we mentioned earlier. Okay, so we have variation, inheritance, a high rate of growth of population, and differential survival and reproduction. When we say variation, it refers to the difference that exists among individuals within the population. No two organisms are exactly alike. Okay, even the twins, although we look at them identical, but there are really certain types, certain gene, okay, in that being that are different. Okay, and this diversity arises from genetic mutations, recombination during sexual reproduction, and environmental influences. Okay, there are different types of variation. Okay, we have the morphology, physiology, and behavioral. Okay, so when we say morphology or morphological variation, it is the difference in the physical traits. Okay, example, we have the beak shape in Darwin's finches. Okay, and sa mga fishes, different forms of and kinds of fishes. Next is for the physiology. Okay, it is the difference in the metabolic or biochemical functions. Okay, example, the tolerance to temperature extremes, okay, things like that. And as we know, different races, okay, of human being has different tolerance to temperature. Okay, white people tend to tolerate cold weather more than black people, and also in the same manner, black people tend um, to tolerate, okay, very hot environment than white people, and that's uh, basically explained through the principle of Charles Darwin. Okay, so this time, we'll be talking about the behavioral. Okay, how does the variation of our behavior came to exist? Okay, variation in actions and instinct. Okay, and that happens with our survival instinct. Okay, we have different hunting strategies. Um, our ancestors before, okay, as we know, they are thriving for food. They are really looking for food in the environment, and that's why they come up with some ideas, some tools that would help them to get their food from their environment. Variation provides the raw material for natural selection to act upon. Some variations may offer advantages that increase an organism's survival and reproductive success. And over time, beneficial variations accumulate, leading to adaptations and evolutions of the new species. So this time we'll be talking about the inheritance. Okay? What is inheritance? Kanang imuhang pagliwat, how the genes, okay, from your parents is passed through the offspring or through the next generation. When we say inheritance, it is the process by which genetic traits are passed from parents to the offspring. This ensures that beneficial traits can be preserved across generations. And Charles Darwin also include that in his principle, okay, the inheritance. Darwin did not fully understand the mechanism of inheritance, okay, because back then we know that the technology is not that advanced, and there is no other, okay, study that suggests that inheritance really takes place. Not until Gregor Mendel came to the stage where he investigated the way how the traits is passed from parents to offspring with the use of the pea plant. Okay, so that's it. Okay, he proposed a concept called the pangenesis, suggesting that tiny particles from all body parts contributed to offspring traits. Yes, so that's it. Okay, so there's actually a modern understanding for that in genetics. Okay, that is basically explained because of the principles that we have right now coming from the idea of prominent um, kanang scientists who are into the field of genetics, and that includes Grigor Mendel, as I said before. Okay, the DNA and the genes carry the instruction for inherited traits. Okay, and that also covers the principle of Mendelian inheritance that tells us how the traits are passed down through dominant and recessive alleles. And there's also the genetic mutations that introduce new variations that can be inherited if beneficials. Okay, actually, the genetic mutations, as we know, okay, many people would see that as disadvantage kanang effect of mutations sa ato ang body. However, genetic mutation is not always disadvantage. Okay? It can somehow become advantage to us because it's the mechanism of our body to adjust to the situation of our environment, to the uh, environment. Okay? Nato. Oh, so mao na siya. Okay, so next, so we're done with the inheritance. Now we'll be talking about a high rate of growth of population. Okay, there is an overproduction or reproduction of organisms. So Darwin observed that most species produce more offspring than environment can support. However, not all individuals survive due to limited sources. Okay, the example of that can be seen in nature. Example, a single pair of elephants could theoretically produce a millions of descendants in few centuries, yet population size remains relatively stable. And also many fish lay thousands of eggs, but only a few survive to adulthood due to predation, competition, and environmental challenges. Okay, actually there are a lots of considerations that we need to look to when we talk about the growth of population. Okay, so there are consequences. Okay, first we have the struggle for existence. With more individuals than resources, competition arises for food, mates, and shelter. As we know, each organism in the environment survive based on the food that is available for them. Okay, and every kind of organism, every individual would, of course, thrive, of course, find their way so that they can achieve the food. And when there is a scarcity of food, other other types of organism will be eliminated. Okay, and that gives reason why there are certain traits in a certain species that is dominant right now. Okay, that's because of the struggle for existence. Next is we have also the struggle for fitness. Okay, only those best suited to their environment are likely to survive and reproduce. Okay, that is basically means that um, the nature select. Okay, let's say for example, do you know why giraffes right now have longer neck? Okay, actually giraffes before have longer neck and short neck. However, because of the scarcity of food, okay, it comes to a time that the remaining food available is only the trees which are tall, and only those giraffes that has a tall neck, okay, can get the food. And that's why most of the giraffes with shorter neck got eliminated from the population of giraffes. Okay, that is survival of the fittest. Next is the differential survival and reproduction. Okay, this principle states that Individuals with advantageous traits are more likely to survive and pass on their genes, while those with less favorable traits are eliminated over time. Okay, so the factors such as predators, climate, and competition determines which trait are beneficial. Organisms with beneficial adaptations, like for example, camouflage, speed, resistance to disease, have higher survival rate. Okay mo na nga kasagaran, sila rapod ang mo survive. So kumbaga, we can claim based on the principle of Charles Darwin that the species that exist right now is those species that have, okay, the ability to fit, okay, ability to strive to the environment. That covers their ability to camouflage, okay, has high speed and resistance to disease. Okay, so those that survive pass on their traits to the offspring and gradually shifting the population's characteristics. Okay, we have example for that. The peppered moths in England before the Industrial Revolution, light-colored moths were more common. Okay, when population darkened tree bark, dark-colored moths had better camouflage and increased in number, demonstrating the natural selection in action. So Darwin's idea laid the foundation of modern evolutionary biology. The variation, inheritance, overproduction, and differential survival and reproduction work together to drive the evolution of species over generations. These principles explain how life adapts to changing environments and why biodiversity exists on the Earth. Okay, so mao to siya ang Natural Selection by Charles Darwin. Okay, now let's talk about Simon Fraud. Are you familiar with Simon Fraud? Okay, I just remembered some of my classmates before pronounced that as Sigmund Freud. Fraud. Okay, however, that's Simon Fraud. Okay, so the Freudian revolution refers to the transformative impact of Simon Freud's theories on psychology, human behavior, and society. Freud, an Austrian neurologist, introduced psychoanalysis. Later on, we'll be talking about the psychoanalysis. Okay, so that's a groundbreaking approach to understanding the human mind, personality, and unconscious. His theories challenge traditional views on rationality, free will, and morality, reshaping psychology, literature, art, and even cultural norms. Before Freud, okay, psychology was primarily focused on conscious thought and observable behavior. Okay, mental illness were often attributed to biological abnormalities or supernatural causes. Freud's work emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. That's a time when scientific and philosophical advancements were questioning long-standing beliefs. And influenced by Darwin's evolutionary theory and John Martin Charot's studies on hypnosis and Joseph Breuer's work with hysteria, Freud proposed that much of human behavior is driven by unconscious forces, or um, he believed that there's something behind why um, the human behavior is like this, why the human behavior is changing, how the human behavior is shaped. Okay. By the way, Simon Freud was born on May 6, 1856, and he is considered as the father of psychoanalysis. He graduated in medicine at the University of Vienna in 1881 and developed the Free Association. Okay, so psychoanalysis is a method for treating mental illness and also a theory that explains human behavior. It's just basically revolved around explanations how we respond to a stimuli, how we act, based on what we perceive around us, okay, and what affects the development of our mind. Okay, psychoanalysis is often known as taking cure. So there are sub-theories of psychoanalysis, and that is theory of instinct, level of consciousness, psychic structure of personality, anxiety and defense mechanism, and psychosexual development. So let's talk first about the theory of instinct. Okay, you can see there in the image, not there we have there an image. Simon Freud's theory of instinct plays a central role in psychoanalytic framework. He believed that human behavior is largely driven by innate biological instinct, which generate unconscious desires and motivations. This instinct shapes personality, emotions, and psychological conflicts. Freud described instinct as internal forces that drive human behavior. They originate, according to him, from biological needs and seek for fulfillment to maintain psychological equilibrium. Okay, and that's basically the characteristic of our life, to be balanced, to achieve equilibrium. Instincts operate from the id, the most primitive part of the mind, and influence thoughts and emotions, and even actions. There are different types of instincts. Freud initially classified instinct into two major categories, and that is the eros and thanos. Okay, so when we say eros, that is life instinct. Okay, life instinct. Kumbaga, that is um, the nature of you wanting to survive, okay, wanting to live. Okay, these instincts promote survival, reproduction, and pleasure. Okay, kumbaga kung unsay gusto sa imuhang lawas, okay, kung unsay gusto nimo as a person, as a flesh being, okay, mo nay imuhang buhaton, and that is what eros is. Okay, they include hunger, thirst, sexual desire, and social bonding. Okay, the libido, okay, or the sexual energy is the key force behind life instincts, influencing attraction, love, and creativity. Okay, that is the eros. Now let's talk about the Thanos. The Thanos, on the other hand, is the death instincts. Freud later introduced the concept of death instincts, proposing that humans have an unconscious drive towards aggression, destruction, and self-harm. This instinct explain violence, war, and self-destructive behaviors. And that's why um, we say we can see, okay, some individuals who would commit uh, suicide, who are suicidal, who are into destructive behaviors. Okay, that's basically because of thanatos, according to Simon Freud. While Eros seeks to preserve life, Thanatos seeks to return the body to an inanimate state. So, kumbaga, kung si Thanatos ganahan pa mabuhi, I mean si Eros ganahan pa mabuhi, si Thanatos is your instinct to stop living, or your instinct para mamatay. Okay, so that's basically the main difference between the Eros and the Thanatos. Okay, the dual instinct theory of Simon Freud. Now let's talk about the level of consciousness. Okay, this is just very easy because as you can see here, there is an iceberg principle, okay, in this image. And let's just first recall, class, that Simon Freud is the father of psychoanalysis, okay, where he proposed that human consciousness is divided into three different levels, and that is the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious mind. Okay, these levels represent different depths of awareness and influence over human thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Okay, I want you to take a look at the image. Okay, so tanawan niha. Um, this one is the conscious mind o nasa babaw. Okay, meaning to say, nakalitaw siya sa tubig. This one is the pre-conscious mind, and this one is the unconscious mind. All right. So the conscious mind, that is the tip of the iceberg. Okay, this is the part of the mind that we are fully aware of at any given moment. It includes our thoughts, perceptions, emotions that we experience directly. An example of that is being aware that you are feeling happy or remembering an appointment. Okay, that is an example of conscious mind. Kumbaga, whatever nasa imuhang mind nga imuhang mahinumduman based on what you can retrieve directly sa imuhang mind or perceive sa imuhang environment. Okay, next to conscious mind is the pre-conscious mind. Okay, that is just below the surface as you can see here. Okay, just below the surface of the water. Okay, the pre-conscious mind contains information that is not actively in awareness but can be easily accessed when needed. It includes memories, stored knowledge, and thoughts that can be recalled. Example for that is remembering your childhood friend's name when someone asks about them, or remembering your most embarrassing moment during the high school days or during the elementary days, or those memories in your past that you tend to not totally forget. Okay, however, you just it just happened to kanang pass sa imuhang mind pero ma-retrieve paghihapon nimo. Okay, that is your pre-conscious mind. Okay, now when we talk about the unconscious mind, that is deep below the surface. Okay, kumbaga nananas pinakailam sa ato ang huna-huna. The unconscious mind holds the repressed thoughts, desires, and traumatic expressions that are hidden from direct awareness. It plays a crucial role in shaping behavior, dreams, and personalities. Okay, fraud believe that unresolved conflicts from the unconscious mind could manifest in dreams, sleep of tongue, okay, that's Freudian sleep, okay, or neurotic behavior, okay, and that's why I somehow think, okay, perhaps the dreams that I have before, ng kanang bitong damgo nga makaingon ta nganong nagdamgo man ko adto nga wala man to naho gi huna-huna or wala man to sa aho ang mind. Okay, that is because of your unconscious mind. Okay, according to Freud. Okay, Freud compared these levels on unconscious mind to an iceberg. Okay, so as you can see here in this image, okay, I'll repeat this for you to understand. Okay, si unconscious mind. So kumbaga in this illustration, ug naa ka nagtindog ani, kay ikaw ni for example kining tao ani, you can perceive what is happening around the ocean. Okay, you can see the penguins, you can see the boat because you are at the top of the water. However, when you look at underneath the water, okay, ang imuharang makitaan of course is kaning duol-duol sa imuhang position. Okay, and that is the pre-conscious mind. And when you look at deeper, nara ka ani nga position, of course, you cannot see what's behind the preconscious mind. Okay, lisod na nimo i-retrieve ng imuhang unconscious mind. Okay, so that's basically the principle of the level of consciousness. Next is the psychic structure of personality. Okay, the id, the ego, and superego. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so sa image, dali ra na siya mahinumduman class because in the image, si id, ang image na to is naay sungay. Naay sungay. Oh, parehas na sa ato ang kilid, naay mga sungay. Bitaw, I'm just kidding. So when we say id, nasa image kanang your instinct of kanang bad 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 side. Okay? Unya si ego, that's the reality. Kani siya tig balance sa imuhang bad ug sa imuhang good. Okay? Si super ego, that's the good instinct. Okay, so the id is the source of instinct demanding immediate gratification. Kung whatever you feel nga mo imong ganahan, no matter if it's good or bad, okay, as long as ganahan ka, okay, mao na imong buhaton, pasabot ana you are id driven. Okay, you followed your id. Okay, before we'll proceed with ego, let's talk first about super ego. Okay, kini si super ego, it imposes moral constraints, often repressing instinctual urges. So kumbaga mao ni magtell nimo og unsay karapat dapat buhaton, unsay proper way, unsay um, sakto. Okay? So mao na si super ego. And the ego here in the middle, okay? The ego mediates between instinctual drives and reality, balancing desires with social norms. Okay? So meaning to say the ego, okay, that's your reality. Okay, that's you. Okay? Imuhang pagbansay-bansay, okay, between the good and the bad. Okay? So, mo na siya. Okay? Since instincts can create socially unacceptable desires, they are often repressed into the unconscious. However, instincts may be sublimated into acceptable activities such as arts, sports, or intellectual pursuits. Okay, so motto, ang main difference between id, ego, and superego. So, we're almost done. Okay, we are now down to the anxiety and defense mechanism. I would like to apologize with the spelling, ha. The spelling here in the PowerPoint presentation is wrong. This is DEFENSE. Okay, that's anxiety and defense mechanism. When we say anxiety, it is an emotional state of a person that occurs when the id overrides the ego. Okay, so mao na kung imuhang decisions is driven by your id, mao na nga magka-anxiety ka. Okay, even if your super ego tells you nga dapat magtuon kay exam, o imuhang id pod moingon nimo nga paglaag sa pagkaon sa gawas. O inga na. Nga mo na nga ang ikaw pod, okay, imuhang ego, your reality, okay, ma-override sa imuhang id, mo na nga na kay anxiety. Nabagsak na ka sa imong exam. Okay, wa ka nagtuon. Mo na siya anxiety. Pero napud tay defense mechanism. Ano sa maning defense mechanism? That is your asa ning tiwason. Una na lang mo kay kanang kan. Defense mechanism. It consists of techniques. I'm sorry for a few distractions, class. It consists of techniques that are used to protect self from anxiety or any unpleasant feeling. So, kumbaga, we do this para matabunan ang ato ang anxiety. Okay? So, kumbaga, murag rason, murag himuon ni natong pang ali sa buhat nato sa nabuhat nato nga sa para dili nato kayo ma-feel ang iyahang consequence. Okay, so we have here the dynamic processes of defense mechanism. Una is denial. Oh. I know nga daghan tang guilty ani. Nga usahay we deny, di ba? We tend to deny bisag kanang wala na nagbuwag na mo. I-deny gyapon nimo bisag di na niya gusto. Okay? So a person refuses to accept reality or facts. Okay, this is often used as a way to protect oneself from painful emotions. The example of that is smokers deny smoking is harmful despite medical evidences. We know naman no nga that's very true nga ang smoke yun maka daot yun na sa ato ang lawas, pero kung ang imuhang paistoryahon is kanang mga manigarilyuhay, Of course, moingon na sila, oh, bitaw. Pero inigtan-aw nimo nila, they will still do the same action because they are in denial. Okay, that is their defense mechanism. Next is fantasy. Okay, the fantasy is the mind creates imagined scenarios to escape from reality or cope with unmet desires. Okay, for example, a struggling student daydream about being a famous scientist instead of studying. Or let's say, for example, you daydreaming to um, be top of the class bisan pa ugwa kay tuon-tuon. Uh, that is fantasy. Next is compensation. Okay, compensation is an individual overachieves in one area to make up for perceived weakness in another. Okay, so kumbaga, you will do at the things that you are good at para matabunan to nimong mga butang nga dili ka lihiro. Okay, and another example also is a person who struggles in academics excels in sports to boast self-esteem. Okay, next is projection. Okay, projection is attributing one's own unwanted thoughts, feelings, or motives to another person. Okay, example for that is someone who is angry at their coworkers. Okay, believes that coworkers is actually the one who dislikes them. Okay, so mao to ang projection. Okay, that is the projection. Now, let's talk about displacement. Okay, that is redirecting emotions from threatening targets to a safer one. Example is a person who is scolded by their boss comes home and yells at their dog. Okay, kumbaga ang imuhang kasuko gipagawas nimo sa lain. Okay, that's displacement. Next is sublimation. Okay, that is channeling unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable behaviors. Example, a person with aggressive tendencies becomes a professional boxer or an artist. Okay, so mao na ang sublimation. Next is reaction formation. Okay, that is acting in a way that is opposite to one's true feeling. Example for that is a person who feels insecure about their intelligence constantly brags about how smart they are. So, mo na reaction formation. Kumbaga, you tend to build your the other people's view of yourself. Okay, by saying something, imong i-feed sila about something which is not actually true sa imuhang self. Okay, next is regression. Okay, regression is reverting to behaviors from an earlier stage of development when faced with stress. An example for that is an adult throws a tantrum when things don't go their way. Okay, next is repression. Okay, that is unconsciously pushing distressing thoughts out of awareness. Okay, an example for that is a person who experienced a traumatic uh, event as a child, okay, and has no memory of it. Okay, next to repression is the suppression. Okay, that is consciously choosing to push thoughts or feelings aside. Okay, example is students who decide to ignore their relationship problems to focus on studying for an exams. These defense mechanisms are always the mind unconsciously or consciously protects itself from anxiety, conflicts, or distress. So, mona siya. And that's um, actually what we tend to do when there is anxiety or when there is something that happens to us. Okay? Especially kung unnecessary events ato ang life. So we're now down to the psychosexual stages of development. We're just going to run through about this different stages. We have oral stage, anal stage, phallic stage, genital stage, and latent stage. Okay, Simon Freud's psychosexual development theory is a cornerstone of psychoanalytic psychology. It explains how personality develops through a series of childhood stages where the pleasure-seeking energies for id focus on specific erogenous zones. Okay? So, or the areas sa imuhang body nga you can feel pleasure or gratification, that is erogenous zone. Freud believed that if conflicts in these stages are not resolved, they can lead to a fixation, which influences adult personality and behavior. Okay. So now we'll be talking about the different stages. The first one is the oral stage. Okay, the oral stage happens, okay, or takes place from birth to the first year sa imong life, birth to 1 year. Okay, your erogenous zone is your mouth, or your area of pleasure is your mouth. Okay, infants derive pleasure primarily from sucking, biting, and swallowing. Okay, activities like breastfeeding, bottle feeding, and putting objects in the mouth are crucial at this age. Okay, so if you will not do those things, okay, weaning or transition from breastfeeding or bottle feeding to solid foods, okay, mao nay imuhang kanang lisudan. Okay, maglisod ka og transition, okay, from breastfeeding to the solid foods. Okay, mo na imuhang conflict. Okay, so there are fixation consequences nga pwedeng mahitabo ana. Okay, that is the overindulgence and frustration. Okay, so for indulgence, it might cause dependency, excessive eating, drinking, smoking, nail beating, which may occur in the later years sa life sa bata. Next is frustration. Okay, pessimism, aggression, then sarcasm. Okay, that's basically if you will not meet, okay, the demand of the child at those stage. Okay, next is the anal stage. The anal stage. Kanang ma'am, excuse me ma'am, napay, ano sa ila? Napay 8:30 mo out, ani? Wala na. Kita na lang? No, naparong ba ko'y gitiwas? Ay, mao ba? Ah, sige. Um, ah, sige, sige. Okay, so since the time will not allow us, okay, I'll just like to let you know that I'll be sending notes, okay, about this topic, remaining topic, which we fails to discuss. Okay, for now, I would like to say my goodbye. Okay, what na tay oras. I hope that you will do take care. Okay, kung asa man mo karon. Okay, so goodbye class. See you on our next discussion.